The Radio Forest Podcast.
Dave, it's Forrest. How are you, man?
I'm doing good, buddy. How are you?
You guys are here in Idaho Friday. It's Hairball. You're one of 3 lead singers. Did you replace somebody? Did they add you to the set list and kind of expand with more bands? Tell me about that.
No, there was a singer that was before me that did the raspy voice singers like Brian Johnson, Gene Simmons, Quiet Riot, Alice Cooper, Cinderella, that kind of thing. He left the band, and when he left the band, they contacted me. They had been kind of scouting me a little bit. I got the phone call. Next thing I know, I'm on the phone with you here in Idaho. So here we go.
So you were in an AC/DC tribute group at the time called Thunderstruck. So had you left that band, or was that something you had to say, hey, guys, I'm out?
Yeah, basically that's exactly what happened. I had formed Thunderstruck in 2015. We were doing very, very well. But when Hairball came a-calling, it was one of those things where it was like, just made a lot of sense on a lot of levels. Everything lined up. It just seemed like a no-brainer, if you will. And I'm super glad that I did it. I'm going into my 4th year right now, and man, are we clicking on all cylinders. It's going great.
Now, I know you've had some experiences in the past with meeting members of KISS. You said you also, performed the Gene Simmons songs with Hairball. I'm super curious because not a lot of people do. Any chance of you coming across the guys in AC/DC?
The only person that I've ran across in AC/DC was Simon Wright. He was the drummer that replaced Phil Rudd back in, the Flick of the Switch days. He was a gentleman, and it was very cool to meet him. But as far as like meeting Brian or Angus or Cliff or Malcolm or any of those guys, no, I've never had the opportunity, man, but would I have loved to done that? I mean, I never fanboy, but I might have done it.
I think I like them more because they don't meet people, and I don't know if they necessarily say no. I think they just are private and sort of don't care. Like they're like, I don't want to do all that stuff. It's kind of like Alex Van Halen. Like you don't see pictures of the paparazzi, you don't see who they're dating, you know nothing about them. I mean, I know Brian lives in Sarasota and he does TV shows and podcasts and interviews, but as far as like pictures of him backstage hanging out with other people, that's not very common for AC/DC.
No, it isn't. And, Brian's the most out front with everything. He's the most gregarious person in the band, I guess you would say. He gets out and, but he's just such a sweetheart of a guy. I mean, everybody that's ever said anything about him has always talked about how sweet he is. They've always been about the fans, everything. They've never shunned a fan or not wanted to meet fans. It's just that you just don't see it often. I mean, it's when they are around the fans, they're all about it. So, but yeah, it's really, really cool. It kind of gives a mystique to it. And I just love those guys. They're awesome. They do it the right way.
Recently in the news, Dave Evans said that he was the best lead singer of AC/DC. Any thoughts on that? He says he's better than Bon and Brian.
Well, I'm the best astronaut that's ever went to the moon. All right. So, I mean, you take that with the weight that I just said it. It's just stupid. I don't understand what he's talking about. God bless him if he believes that, and that's fine. But, Hoss, that's just not the facts.
What are your thoughts on Guns N' Roses as a band? What are your thoughts on Axl Rose as a lead singer of AC/DC filling in?
I pull no punches on this. I was around when Guns N' Roses first formed, and I actually saw them open up for Alice Cooper on their first tour with Appetite. They were just phenomenal. A very dangerous rock and roll band that was sleazy and cool, and I was very into it. That was 87. I remember it clearly. I got to meet Duff and Slash and Steven at the show, and they were just super sweet and very kind to a young 15-year-old Dave Moody. And I was a big fan. But as time went on, and I'm still a fan of that record, how can you not be? It's absolutely perfection. It just is. It's perfection. But as time went on, you saw his behavior and how it manifested itself. And, over time, I always tell people all the time, you have one rule in rock and roll. We'll let you do drugs and go to rehab 1,000,000 times. We'll let you wreck your car. We'll let you go bankrupt. Name the problem, and we're going to forgive you for it. One that I will not forgive you for is disrespecting the fans. And he did that over and over and over and over and over. And I saw it so many times that I was like, you know what? You're not getting another penny of my money. You're just not. And they haven't. They haven't gotten 1 cent out of me, and they won't. People can say that's harboring a grudge or being petty. Well, call me Tom, because that's just the way it is. I'm not going to support somebody who did the things he did back in the day and reward him for it. It's not happening.
Do you think he's done a little bit better in the last couple of years? Obviously, not good enough to change your mind. Do you think, like, once he got back with the guys?
I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. At the end of the day, our whole thing has always been about the fans. My thing has always been about the fans, and Hairball's thing has always been about the fans, and that's exactly how it should be. And you can never disrespect them, or you can never turn your back on them, and you could never be above them. Just not the way it works. So God bless him. If he's doing great now, good. It doesn't affect me one way or the other. I'm cool.
What were your thoughts on as a fan with him singing, or is it too overshadowed again by the guy that Axl is? With AC/DC, I mean.
I wasn't a fan of it, and I wasn't going to go see it. Like I said, he was never going to get another penny from me. If he was Bon Scott reincarnated, I was not going to go see him. It just wasn't going to happen.
Prior to Hairball, you played bass with Billy Ray Cyrus, I believe, for like a decade or so. How did you get that gig on bass with him? How did that come across? Because, right, you had bands before that, you know, like Magnetic Flux and stuff. So is that what led to Billy Ray Cyrus?
Wow, you did your homework. Magnetic Flux, good job. You know, I was friends with the family before Billy had made it, because I'm from Kentucky as well. Billy's from Flatwoods. I'm from Louisville. But his brother had moved into Louisville, and we became really good friends before his brother made it. And over the years, we developed, you know, a family bond with everything. And at one point, he ended up becoming Billy's tour manager and manager. He called me one day and asked me if I'd be interested in trying out for his brother playing bass. Absolutely. And I took the opportunity, and it was around the Hannah Montana period. Man, I wouldn't trade that period of my life for nothing. It was pretty awesome. And the stories that I have from that are pretty monumental, and the things that I got to do. Billy's just such a sweet, sweet man. He's as advertised. He's just a great, great guy. I'd go over and cut his grass if he asked me. He's just that great of a human being. And he ended up giving me the opportunity that nobody would give me. And, you know, he validated me. So I'm very grateful for everything about Billy Ray.
So when you're playing with him and you guys get to do like the Grand Ole Opry and all these iconic shows, and he's got the fame that he has, who are the people that are able to get backstage and spend some time with Billy? Because at that point, he's got to have people in every state that he knows personally, and he moves into another echelon of random people getting to have autographs and get 10 minutes with him because he's just too famous and it becomes too much. But who are the people then that have all access sort of backstage that you're like, oh my God, it's so-and-so backstage to see Billy?
See, here's where we could draw a direct line to Axl Rose and Billy Ray and compare them. Billy would talk to a lamppost. Billy was the sweetest, most gracious, awesome person to fans and people that came out to the show. I'm going to tell you a story. This is a very true story, and this will tell you who Billy Ray is. And then you draw the comparison to Axl Rose, and you tell me who's the man. When I first met Billy Ray, I came back with his brother, and this was during the achy breaky period. I got to come to the show. They set me up because he knew I was a musician. This was one of our very first met Billy, and he was on top of the world. His brother, my good friend, he goes, man, Billy really wants to meet you. And I said, okay. It was right after the show. Billy comes out of his dressing room, and he grabs me by my shoulder of my shirt, and he says, hey, Dave, it's good to meet you. He goes, man, I understand you're a musician. I said, yeah, I am. And he goes, well, what do you want to do with it? And I said, well, I want to make it. I want to get, where you are. I want to make a living playing music. And he goes, that's cool. That's cool. He goes, and we're walking down a hallway. Now imagine walking down a hallway backstage of any arena. And he goes, well, that's cool. He goes, well, let me tell you something. He goes, you know how you see all these lights and the PA and the screaming fans and, all the pictures being taken and all the craziness and And I go, yeah, man, that is really, really cool. He goes, listen, man, it is cool. He goes, but that's not what it's about. That is absolutely not what it's about. And I go, what do you mean? And we come to this door, bro, and if I'm lying, I'm dying. If I'm standing in front of God himself right now, this is exactly what happened. We come to a door, and he's got his hand on the knob, and he says, it's not about fame and fortune and money and all that stuff. And I said, okay. He goes, this is what it's about. And he opens the door, and hand to God, I look in this room, and it is nothing but special needs kids in beds, wheelchairs. There's blind kids. There's disabled kids or special needs. The whole room's filled with them. He went to every single one of them, spent time with them, took pictures with them. He went up to a blind kid. His sister looked at him. His name was Nick. I'll never forget this. Looked at Nick, and his sister looked at Nick and said, Nick, it's Billy Ray, and he had a guitar in his hand. And Nick reached up and touched Billy's face and said, oh, my God, it's Billy Ray. And Billy Ray was touching his face going, oh, my God, it's Nick, it's Nick. And his sister said, he knows all of your songs on guitar. Billy made everybody move the furniture out of the way of this kid. The whole band sat in front of him and said, I'm not leaving until you're done playing. Now, you tell me who's the person versus Axl Rose. That is an actual true story.
I thought you were going to tell me that Billy said, Dave, you're Billy Ray Cyrus. Go talk to the blind kids. I'll tell them, hey, it's Billy Ray Cyrus. And then he dips out. That's the Axl move.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I'm just telling you, that's where your separation comes from, and just being a good human being. And Billy taught me that in spades.
What about the guys from Kiss? I've met them a few times, and I to be honest with you, I anticipated them sort of being dicks. I've talked to Ace on the phone a few times, met Gene 2 or 3 times, and in reality, they actually were way sweeter than I thought. And I was like, oh, and it was kind of I don't want to say working it, but it was giving me time and paying attention and listening. And I was like, oh crap, wow, that's kind of, it was unexpected. What was your experience like with meeting several different members of Kiss?
The exact same. Just great guys. They treated me with respect. I actually had Gene Simmons was looking to sign Magnetic Flux at that period of time, which, and it didn't happen. But I mean, they were just the sweetest guys. And to meet your heroes and they be everything that you wanted them to be is so special. So that actually happened for me. It was awesome.
Dave, how do you guys figure out the order of the performances? Obviously, you're building a set list, so you start to learn what the fans go crazy for. But these are all hits, so that's got to be tough. Does coming into play how many songs you do in a row affect it? Does it rotate to give you time to change to the next lead singer, so to speak? Or how does that set list get formed?
No, what we do is typically, we save the set list from any place that we've played. Therefore, when we go back to the place again, we can refer to that set list and make sure that we're not duplicating the same set list. So we can do upward of 35 characters at any given time. We can flip a show so quick, it's just insane. But on that same token, there's certain characters that, come on, man, you got to do Kiss. You got to do AC/DC. You got to do Guns N' Roses. You got to do these characters, and it's so important. But what we do is we sprinkle in some new ones with the old set list. So the show's not the same. We take the show and we jumble it up, and maybe Vince Neil opens the show. Maybe Brian Johnson opens the show. Then the show has a different groove to it. That's how we do that.
Now, you've got an upcoming cruise, and it's also a motorcycle rally, and I saw that Vixen and Lou Gramm were going to be on there, too. Any chance of pulling out some Foreigner songs, or you had people like that hop on stage with you in the past? Because going from town to town, crossing other tours, you have to bump into people that you're covering or you have in the past and can throw it into the set.
Oh, my God, yes. We've had everybody on stage with us, which is remarkable and wonderful and humbling to have those people get up with us. And by the way, the Kentucky Headhunters, fellow Kentucky boys, are on it too.
Oh, yeah, they're on that bill.
Which is great. So if you haven't seen those guys, that's a rock and roll band. I mean, they're country, but they're rock and roll. Man, it would be great to learn some Foreigner and have the great and Awesome and legendary Lou Gramm get up and rip one out because he can still belt it out. I don't know if you've heard him, but he can still do it. It's amazing.
Can you give us any names of people that have hopped on stage with you?
Oh, in the history of the band, Gene and Paul from Kiss have been up. Rob Halford, Rob Zombie, Stephen Pearcy, Brett Michaels, Lita Ford, Alice Cooper. That's very humbling that our heroes will get up and jam with us and give us a wink and a nod.
Well, from Magnetic Flux, Billy Ray Cyrus, and Hairball, one of the three lead singers doing the AC/DC, Twisted Sister, Kiss, and more, Dave Moody from Hairball, Friday, April 26th, Revolution Concert House here in Idaho. Dave, hey, thanks for giving me some time today, man. I really appreciate you answering these questions.
Hey, man, thank you for the time. We're looking forward to seeing you guys. Come on out and sing the greatest hits to the greatest choruses of the greatest songs ever written in the history of rock and roll. We preach the gospel better than any Billy Graham convention ever thought about doing it. And we are going to preach the gospel of rock and roll that night. We're going to spill beer on each other. You're going to walk in, but you're going to float out. Oh, my God. Let me give you a big old Ric Flair woo. Woo!